Daka here, your friendly neighborhood preservationist.
And Vanessa, your intrepid cities journalist.
And we're here today with another special bonus episode between seasons.
We are on a bonus episode roll, Daka.
Right? I know. Go us.
Go us.
We rock. Awesome. So we were recently chatting with the fabulous Claudia Polley, the founder of Urban Legacy Lands Initiative, or ULI, which seeks to protect the heritage of Black people in places through preservation and real estate development.
Right. You may remember Claudia from our Indianapolis episodes, where we learned about her family history of preservation and the work that she's doing today to keep her family legacy alive through ULI.
Yeah, and as we were chatting, Claudia asked us, hey, are you going to the HAANDS Summit in Atlanta later this month?
And we were like, HAANDS, you say?
That was pretty embarrassing, to be honest. Like, I'm a preservationist. How did I not know about the historic African American Neighborhood Development Summit, or HAANDS for short?
Right. What? To be fair, though, Decca, it is only in its second year of existence.
That's true. Yeah, I shouldn't be so hard on myself.
Yeah, be nice.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So last year, it was all virtual. And this year's summit is taking place in Atlanta on November 17th and 18th.
Mm-hmm. And Claudia basically told us that we had to go.
Yes, we have to go. And I agreed. Yeah, absolutely. But as you may know, listeners, we are part of a community preservation non-for-profit that I co-founded based in Cincinnati called Urbanist Media. Mm-hmm. And all the work we do, like the podcast and other programs, all of it, we rely on fundraising and donations from people like you.
Right. So in other words, we don't have like tons of spare cash just lying around.
Yeah, exactly. But Claudia knew that this summit would be an amazing opportunity for us to meet real leaders in the fields of community preservation and equitable development.
Right. And potentially also just find some amazing new stories for us to tell you.
Exactly. So Claudia, on behalf of ULI, very generously offered us a travel stipend so that we can now attend.
That's right. We're going to Atlanta.
We're going to ATL, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we are super excited. And while ULI sponsorship is making this trip possible, it doesn't cover all the costs. Vanessa and I are paying for the remainder out of pocket, and we're hoping to raise another $500 from our listeners to help recoup that.
Yes, it would be a huge help for us.
You could easily donate by going to urbanistmedia.org and clicking the banner at the top of the page, which will then take you to our PayPal page. Please just note the word HANDS when you donate.
In the meantime, we did want to share some more about HANDS, its story, what it's all about. So we reached out to its co-founder, Elijah Davis, for a conversation.
We think anyone interested in the future of Black heritage lands will enjoy this conversation with Elijah and maybe even be inspired to go to the summit and hang out with us.
I would love that if some Urban Roots listeners came to the summit so we could hang out in real life for a change.
IRL.
Yes,
right?
That would be awesome.
Yes, I love that.
All right, but until then, shall we play the interview?
Yes, let's do it. Here is Elijah Davis, co-founder of HANDS.
To kick us off, would you mind just going a little bit into your personal background? Introduce yourself to our listeners. Who are you and how did you get into this work?
I'm excited to be here. I was born and mostly reared in Mobile, Alabama. My neighborhood in Mobile is called the Bottom Campground. It's a historic Black neighborhood that my family has been a part of for over 120 years. And it is on the National Register of Historic Places. My grandmother would tell me stories about what the avenue, as she called it, was, about the Black shops and businesses and how it made her feel. And man, the way that she talks about it, the way her eyes go up into the ceiling and out of the window, there was something to that sense of place that was extremely moving for me, that even though I was never here to see it, I was immediately connected to it. And so I also came about when Miss Dora Finley Franklin, God rest her soul, was doing a very important preservation work in the city of Mobile with the African American Heritage Trail. And our corridor was extremely essential to that. So when I came to UAB for school, and the first weekend at Birmingham, I walked down to the Civil Rights District and I met a barber who was outside, and I looked down and I saw an intact African American corridor, something that wasn't there in Mobile. And from that point, really, honestly, I continued to fall in love. And so you fast forward 4 years, and I had the opportunity to grow up professionally at Urban Impact, the community economic development agency that serves the Birmingham Civil Rights National Monument District and 4th Avenue Historic District. My degree is in economics and have really grown into understanding urbanism and understanding preservation. And so that's how I got into the field. I would just generally say, I grew up in a lot of different hoods in the country, and, there's beauty in brokenness. And our family was deeply impacted by the Great Recession. And had it not been for the Great Recession, I don't know that I would have chosen economics, but I was trying to understand the structural issues that allowed my family and other families to be so vulnerable. I'm also a survivor of Hurricane Katrina. We were living outside of Biloxi, Mississippi when the storm hit. All of these things were deeply impactful for me. I see this work, this preservation work of spirit, this neighborhood preservation of economic opportunity, and this preservation of whatever my grandmother felt when she talked about the Black neighborhood that she grew up in as spiritual work. As Christina Sharp would say, it's all sort of in this space of wake work as we try to understand our sense of being in this country as Black folk, and we try to understand our sense of place. So you should also know, you got to interrupt me because I was supposed to be a 5th generation preacher, so you got to interrupt.
That's hilarious.
Love that.
Yeah.
I also did love what you said about the work of spirit and what your grandmother felt, because we've talked to a lot of elders doing our work, and I think we certainly feel that too. I think a lot of our episodes, we've talked to folks in communities and they remember how their neighborhoods were thriving, and we've talked to them about their stories and how their neighborhoods just experienced so much disinvestment.
Yeah, I am very interested in this kind of nexus between preservation and planning and economic development.
And I wanted to ask you this, Elijah, how you think about that balance, basically, like the need for historic preservation, the need to preserve structures that are significant to people and often haven't been preserved and need to be preserved, especially in Black communities, versus the need to develop new things and to grow and for housing to be introduced and small businesses to thrive. Like, how do you think about that balance?
Yeah, absolutely. It's something to continue to grapple with. There are some thematic challenges and solutions, and then there are some tactical challenges and solutions in terms of development. Very quickly on the practical side, if the local community does not own the land, then they can't do anything. Right. And that's one of the biggest fights. Historic preservation, the historic tax credit has been used to gentrify neighborhoods. So there's a redevelopment challenge even to take advantage of stabilization. And there needs to be a different suite of financial products to do that. But the thematic piece here is, I'm going to borrow from some of the discussions about the A.G. Gaston Motel and architect Jack Pyburn, who's, one of the leading architects in historic preservation. This is the preservation of spirit. And what I mean about preservation of spirit is, how do we get back to vitality and vibrancy and density and variety and belongingness, right? Most of these districts were sequestered economically and socially because of segregation. You had everything from barber and beauty shops to doctors and lawyers on one block, right? So there's a whole full spectrum of Blackness, a full spectrum of density. Before folks would call it stuff mixed use, we were doing that mixed use stuff. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I think the way in which I think about it is that let's stabilize and preserve and reinvigorate what we do have that connects us. Most of these districts, there are 1 or 2 churches, 1 or 2 buildings that are contributing in terms of architectural features. You should put energy in to stabilize, and let's continue to build new stuff so that we're not, caught up in sort of nostalgic visions. And that's the reason why so many people are turned off from preservation, because it's usually nostalgic. But, you know, we're very tactical and practical. Look, we're going to build some new stuff. We're going to rehab some stuff, and we're going to stabilize, preserve, and honor what we still have.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I totally feel that. And I think a lot of those concepts, from what I can understand, really like have come to light through the HAANDS summit. So if we could sort of switch it a little bit and give you an opportunity to kind of tell people about, you know, how it started, why it started, when it started, and, you know, just give them your origin story.
Yeah, absolutely. So in 2018, I took a trip up to visit my family on Chicago. And I stopped on some key places in 65 through New Eyes. So, you know, looking through Nashville, Jefferson Street in North Nashville, Indianapolis, Indiana Avenue. So I'm so glad to see the work that Claudia and her team are now doing. Went to Atlanta. You know, Atlanta is so similar to Birmingham, another urban national park and monument. We were exploring whether or not the Main Street America program was necessary for us. And we knew that it was a rural model that was historically exclusive. This is, you know, right around the time that Dion Bowe, who ran the urban programs, was there. And so went up, pulled up on them, and we just hit it off immediately. And so it really started as just grassroots fellowship between two Black-led organizations, not just Black in staff, but Black in board, Black in community, with Black property ownership. And so we began the fellowship. We felt that there was an opportunity to magnify what we had done organically, which was develop, you know, relationships. And so the mission is to preserve, enhance, and elevate historic Black neighborhoods and commercial districts by strengthening connections between the people who serve them. And this is really premised on the idea that these neighborhoods are going through a maturity cycle of redevelopment. And neighborhoods are different stages, and there are things that we can learn about how Black folks have been oppressed and the way that we respond to them that I think can help to accelerate our resistance to the externalities of reurbanization that we're seeing. And so
hold on, I really like what you just said. Accelerate our resistance to the externalities of
reurbanization in American cities.
Accelerate our resistance to the externalities of reurbanization. I guess reurbanization is like when resources come back, when there's like an influx of resources, but the externalities would be that not everyone accesses them equitably. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to put up a wall against gentrification and displacement and a way for Black neighborhoods to value capture. These neighborhoods that are mostly near downtowns sometimes are economically segregated and excluded, but now they're valuable pieces of land, right? Because of sort of trends and the way that, you know, millennials and everybody else are living. And we also know globally, human settlement patterns in cities and mega cities. We're still very spread out in the United States rather, but, you know, it's coming. So it's important that the cycle of disinvestment does not continue. Finally, what I would say is that, you know, I'm the same age as Trayvon would have been. The post-Trayvon consciousness has led to, in my opinion, and in the work of other scholars, a grappling with liberation and freedom. And the economic issue is central to that liberation and freedom. And how we've been approaching that in popular consumption has been extremely interesting. So let's rebuild Black Wall Street, right? Let's do that. So that's been a big thing, sort of capitalistic view or a romanticized view of the Greenwood District. And then on the other side, you have the movement for Black Lives, which is rooted in sort of a social view of liberation in the Black Commons that says, let's not recreate capitalist structures. And so the big picture here is when we think about buy back the block, and we think about earn your leisure, and we think about invest fest, and we think about all of these things that have popped up in our culture. One of the things that has spurred us to action is to be able to bring those of us who are most impacted, residents, enthusiasts, scholars, but also community and economic development professionals into a national platform to engage and let's do this work together.
One of the main reasons that HANDS exists is to bring people together to focus on things like equitable growth and redevelopment, Black entrepreneurship and ecosystems, which is, as you've been saying, incredibly central to the work. But another element that's on your website of what you focus on is historic preservation and storytelling. And I really wanted to get your thoughts on that. Why is it that preservation and storytelling are integral to the work as well?
When I go back to the very piece of why I was so intrigued, it was my grandmother's storytelling about the place that she lived in. And what is extremely important is that our liberation is also in our narratives. It's also the ability for us to name ourselves and to tell our stories and to uplift our neighbors and shared experiences. This is an emergent and critical element of culture. One of America's original sins is the cycle of displacement. From our indigenous brothers and sisters to Black folks always being displaced because we are not given sort of our economic stake. And so we have to lay claim to the places that we have because that is our right in this world. There is a double consciousness of being, displaced in the diaspora and also having a stake in America, in the United States. People are tied to that land. And so even though we have been in a foreign land, sojourning in this place, we have still made this place our home. And so we should honor our grandmamas and our grandfathers and our parents. And so preservation is really about connecting ourselves and giving our self-space for culture. And that's the reason why there's some great work that you'll see at the conference.
Yeah, my last question for you is really for people who are interested in attending the summit, what will those 2 days be like, and is there any event that you're super excited about?
I'm excited for all of the events. We're supported by the National Trust for Historic Preservation of African American Cultural Heritage Action Fund. So we're a 2020 grantee. Last year we had
that's a big deal.
Yeah, so last year we had a digital conference. We had folks like Joanne Cobb and, Aya Shabu and folks from Black Space. And this year is our first in-person conference. We really believe in being interactive. And so we'll have a keynote talking about reconnecting communities. We'll have a reception for folks to network, but we'll also have tours on both days. So we'll have a tour of Sweet Auburn, both historically, and then we'll have a tour on day 2 of it tactically and how Sweet Auburn works and HDDC are essentially doing equitable redevelopment. We'll also have a few panels to discuss what other folks are doing across the nation in equitable redevelopment. We'll have a historic and also redevelopment tour of West Side Atlanta, because West Side is also where the AUC is and really sort of the anchor of the Black community historically. And we'll make some announcements about where HANDS is going in the next 10 years, because we're committed to this thing. And the most important thing I want to leave your listeners with is that this is not just a summit. We are going to transition into sort of ongoing services and ongoing work. And that's what we're really all really excited about. So people can plug in. We'll resume our monthly calls. We started in the middle of this year, and this has been so great to get folks from LA, Philadelphia, stuff like that. The other piece, to shout out to Tiara Brown, called us up maybe 2 years ago on the West End, Cincinnati, and was like, we need a network.
In Cincinnati, yeah.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah, we're working on a directory of these neighborhoods nationwide.
Oh, great.
So that is a really exciting project, and we'll talk a little bit more at the conference.
I am super excited for it. There's like all these people in different cities doing similar things, and also like the other disciplines that, like, you know, economic development is not always seen as something directly related to preservation, or at least it hasn't been until kind of recently. So that's really exciting. And yeah, we will talk more, and we will bring our recorders and talk more with you in person.
Well, this was so great. I love the work you all are doing. Thank you so much for reaching out, and I look forward to seeing you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elijah. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to our interview with Elijah Davis. We hope you're excited for HANDS, taking place November 17th and 18th in Atlanta.
Just a reminder, to help cover our travel costs, we're trying to raise $500 from you, our listeners. So if you believe in the work that me and Decca do, the work of sharing and preserving the histories of underrepresented people and places, then please consider donating to us.
Yes, you could easily donate by going to urbanistmedia.org and clicking the banner at the top of the page, which will then take you to our PayPal page. Please just note the word HANDS when you donate.
So if we do raise over $500, we will use that extra money to produce some of the stories and tours that we're hoping to capture while we're in Atlanta.
Yes. Okay, so with that, let's thank some people.
Yes.
First of all, thank you to Claudia Polley and Krista Weatherholt and Uli for sponsoring our trip to HANDS. You can find out more about the Urban Legacy Lands Initiative at ulli1.org.
Thank you, of course, to Elijah Davis, the co-founder of HANDS, and you can learn more about HANDS at HAANDS.org.
This episode was edited by Vanessa Quirk and Connor Lynch, and mixed by Connor Lynch.
Our music is by Adam James Levin Arity.
Your hosts are me, Deqa Hussein Wetzel, and Vanessa Quirk.
Okay, I think that's it, Decca. Wanna hit the good people with the tagline?
Yeah, absolutely. Urban Roots, looking back so we can move forward.